Hi, good morning. This is Chris Marshall, fellow board member with the Mews of Kimberton, Greene. And as you know, this time of year, we're thinking about the holiday season. But as a board, we're also thinking about the budget for next year and some of the major projects we've been discussing. I thought it was an appropriate time to talk to everyone about the capital reserve account, just as a level set and a review, so that all of us are on the same page with what a capital reserve account is, how it behaves, and how we can manage it for long-term success of this community. So please sit back and enjoy this short video. In lieu of the next meeting on the 20th of November, I will not be there, so this is what I wanted to share with you. What is a capital reserve account? Thought it would be a good place just to begin. A general definition, as you can see here, is a capital reserve account is a pool of money which homeowners associations set aside, much like a savings account, for covering repair or replacement of the association's common area components. There is a financial accounting definition that is basically tailored towards for-profit organizations like big companies, manufacturers, things like this. But along that framework, nonprofits like our HOA do treat the capital reserve account similarly. So I put that in just as a review for most of us who've taken financial accounting to connect the dots. How do capital reserve accounts behave? For financially healthy organizations such as ours, reserve accounts fluctuate up and down to reflect the accumulation of capital reserve and payment for capital improvement projects. A capital improvement project varies by industry, but generally it is an investment into plant and equipment, which can be depreciated over the asset's useful life. So in our case, it's capital improvement for common areas, mainly condominium responsibilities. I found some information on the internet, which I thought was very apropos for our conversation. I realize that you're not going to click on this link during the video, so I've also left the title in it. You can search for Elite Management Services article on what are capital improvements, should HOA fund them. Very good article. From that article, I put down some of the major examples of projects that would qualify for capital reserve improvement. Things like replacing a roof, adding solar panels for water heating or other, installing smart irrigation systems, installing wall-to-wall carpeting in a clubhouse, for example, ADA accessibility ramps, construction of any new deck, porch, patio for said clubhouse if we had one, resurfacing paved roads, and adding energy efficient appliances. I added these for food for thought because we really don't know what's going to happen in the future and what we're going to need to consider as a capital improvement project. Our main focus right now is replacing roofs and replacing the streets in due time, but a lot of other things can pop up. Graphically, I wanted to share with you a picture so that it really helps people understand what's happening with regards to a capital reserve account. So there's three lines on this chart, as you can see. The orange line is our contributions line. The gray line is the expense line for any capital improvement projects. And the blue line represents the reserve total. So the accumulated capital reserves that we've been collecting. So I guess we'll start with the blue line. You can see that from 2017, we had a slight decline, and then we've been accumulating at a pretty steady rate over the past few years to build up our reserve total. And if my count is correct, we're over $1 million, pretty close to 1.18 million in December. So the last line here is the gray line. Gray line represents the expenditures. So when we have a large project, such as retaining wall replacement, you're going to see a spike in that expense line. So as that goes up, you notice during the same time period, the blue line declined. And that makes sense, right? Because the money's coming out of that blue line account in order to pay for the gray. And so if you follow that gray line, you realize that we have been really holding back on capital reserve spending as much as possible in order to grow that blue line and recover from that major project a few years ago. And only recently did we have some surprise outlays, such as the sprinkler repairs. And just for modeling purposes, I'm expecting that this line will rise over time. So again, this is an example. I used as many real numbers as I could find, but you know, again, we don't know what the future is going to be. So let's take a look as we move forward. What else is important here? What will the capital reserve look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, nobody knows specifically, but it will be a function of the requirements for capital improvement projects during that time. So what do we need? And also, what are we going to contribute over that same period? So it's just a function of the inputs and outputs. Food for thought here is, if the desired outcome of the community is to reinvest into the capital assets and remain solvent with reserves for unforeseen events, then careful thinking is required by the board to guide this ship safely and efficiently. So other than streets and the roofs, what else should we be thinking about? Here's an additional list that I pulled together from our most recent reserve study that you can see I cut out from that reserve study and just put on the right-hand side. Some of those highlights are sidewalk replacement, repair, sprinkler system replacement, walking path replacement, replacement of trees and shrubs, vinyl siding replacement potentially. And then I added some possibilities because we really don't know what the legislation is going to look like in the future. And there may be some mandates that come down from the state that we need to think about, such as there may be a mandate that we put solar panels on our roofs in order to save energy. There may be a mandate for recharging for electric vehicles, and similarly, more efficient LED streetlights. Things like this we need to be prepared for, because in other parts of the country, this is already happening. And as most of us know, when legislation like this happens in places like California, eventually Pennsylvania picks that up. And so I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but it's in the mix. It is a possibility. So food for thought. Okay, this chart is a couple of projections I just put together just to kick off the discussion on what we're looking at here. So again, you have the blue line, the gray line, the orange line. I titled this the worst case projection because I think it's always important to really understand what the worst case is going to be so that you can work from there as a base. The worst case projection assumes there's no increase in the capital reserve contributions. So you can see this orange line is very flat throughout the entire 10-year span that I'm looking at. Additionally, at this time, the gray line is up because we're spending on our roofs, but also I added some additional spending because some of these other things on the list we may have to spend on. You know, something might come up again, a surprise about sprinklers. While we're doing the roofs, we may bump into some sort of problem like that. So I built in to the model additional money to be to handle that type of situation. And so no surprise, the capital reserve account is going to be coming down at this angle. And by 2026, the roofs should be done, all of them. And we'll see a flattening of our capital reserve account through 2027, 28. But notice what the number says $425,000. So it's likely that the cost of the streets is going to be more than $425,000. Therefore, we wouldn't be able to pay for the street repair. So we need to actually save up for that. So as we move forward, 2029 seemed like the latest that we could possibly consider street repair. So I plugged that in at this level, and you can see that our capital reserve account actually goes slightly negative at that point, and it takes a long time for us to recover at that level. And we may, we may want to consider how to handle that. Clearly, in my mind's eye, it doesn't seem like it's a great path of recovery. So with that in mind, I built a different model just for comparison and discussion purposes for our consideration as a board. My model here assumes a $10 increase in the capital contribution in 2023, 2024, and 2027. And what that allows us to do is begin to build our capital reserve account up again. And it also allows us to pull forward the street repairs 2 years earlier, 2027. So I feel like for me, this seems like a realistic consideration for how we can move forward. So I summarized this in this slide here, where worst case scenario assumes no additional contributions, just to reiterate that. No significant capital expenditures after the roofs are replaced, except for the streets are replaced in 2029. The implication is if this path is followed, the community will not have significant reserves to handle unforeseen events. So just to contrast that, the model I put together, I called the prudent case scenario, assumes additional contributions to the reserves of $10 per month per unit for 2023, 24, and 27. As a baseline, we're currently at $71 per month per unit for contribution. And I'm proposing that for discussion, we should think about increasing that a few times over the next 10 years. If we follow this, you could see that it allows the streets to be replaced in 2027, not 2029, and it maintains solvency for unforeseen events, as well as help rebuild the capital reserve account to maintain attractive resale of our community for our community owners. So that's an important point we need to consider. When people are looking to buy into this community, they do look at the capital reserve account to see if we are basically if we're solvent and if we're ready for life's events that affect the community. So an appropriate level is needed in order to present and put our best foot forward as a community. So food for thought there. That's all I have as far as the presentation is concerned. And again, this is not intended to, make a decisive mandate on what to do. It's actually to kick off a conversation and help everyone understand graphically how this works, what the behaviors are, and also to stoke food for thought on how we should move forward together as a team. Thanks a lot for watching the presentation, and I hope this achieves that aim of stoking a hearty conversation so that we can move better together as a team. Thanks a lot. Happy holidays. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.